Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I'm on an absolute high right now. Not a literal one, a high on life, because it has been a hell of a week with Bajra. I actually finished my third 1v1 today, so now I can get to working on the videos that I wanted to get done, because it was haunting me that I had two done and I didn't have the third one done. It was really pulling away from my concentration, but we had a good time. We've now got them all done. We can now do some more fun things like Tank White Mage inside of Castrum, which I am going to be doing tomorrow. And I'll probably upload some fun stuff like that. Doing like Healer Tank and like Tank White Mage and stuff. Yeah, I've got some fun stuff planned. And if nobody else is ever attempting a 1v1 and I'm the only one queuing in, I also want to try some fun stuff. See if there's anything that's reflectable or try it on a different job. So I plan to have a lot more fun for the weeks to come with Bajra. We also have Crown Tundra this week. Of course, got the PS5 release with Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition and Demon Souls, which is going to be a great time come November 12th, assuming I get it on the 12th. And so, yeah, I'm excited. My energy's high, and I get to pull on Klee in Genshin Impact this week and not get it, and then I'm going to hate myself. Okie dokie. On that note, though, let's get to the questions. But before that, thank you to our patrons for sponsoring. We had a new one, actually. I've been so wrapped up in what I've been doing. I know I had a new patron or two. If I forget to add your name, I apologize, but I'll give you a shout out now. Linnea. Linnea is a new premium sponsor. And yeah, that's the name. And also we had I might be changing a few things up on Patreon, so that way it's a little more clear what it's for, and to give some stuff to people who even just do $1. At least like a shout out tier or something like that, like a coffee tier or something like that. Because I don't do anything with the Patreon, so if I can at least recognize the people on there, fix up the list, and give people a little more room. But it's optional, no matter what. All my content's free. It all gets posted here to YouTube. Occasionally, YouTube decides to play 6 billion ads on a State of the Realm. Hopefully, they don't ever do that with a Mondays with Mr. Happy. If not, I'm going to have to manually fix it, because it's getting really annoying on the State of the Realm post weekly. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Cross, on Jenova, and Kurenai Oni. Thank you to everyone who's been supporting. And if you're not supporting and you're still on that scrolling list, it's because it's COVID times and you've been a supporter here sometime in the past. And I can't bear to take your name off of that when a lot of us are facing hard times, because you have been a contributor to this, and I have to appreciate that all the same. Anyway, with that, let's get to some questions. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Happy. You doing all right? Have a quick bonus of a hello for anyone who misses it this week. I'll hold on to that one. I'll hold on to that and remember it. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. So on to the question. When you first started your channel, you said you regretted being a pure 14 streamer, with you in recent years branching into other games. What games do you wish you had streamed back when you first started out? As always, thanks for answering. You know, when I think back, I wish the technology that we have now for broadcasting was more widely available when I was in my kind of teenage years. Because I had always wanted to do video editing and gaming related content. In high school, I actually took extra years on a course that didn't have extra classes, just so I could be around, you know, so I could be part of the yearbook team for multiple years in a row, so I could work on video compilations and stuff like that. Just little tiny things that I really feel like pushed me in the direction I'm in today. But as for the other games that I would have wanted to play, I mean, there's so many, man. I used to play like every genre game. I used to play my Call of Duties, but then I'd be playing my, you know, my D&D style RPGs. Now that's one big thing I wish I had better viewership on, because it would really be a big encouragement for me, is if games like Divinity Original Sin 2 or Baldur's Gate, I don't feel good when I'm streaming them, because I don't feel like my stream is as invested in them as I am, and that really pulls me out of it, because I love those style of games. I love messing around and doing all sorts of crazy stuff in them. But I just, if I was like that early on, if I had maybe introduced that earlier on, it may have been something more consistent for my channel. Looters that are big for me, Diablo, Path of Exile, but whenever I stream them, it's the same feeling. Like, it feels like the stream's not really into it, and it's because I've really pigeonholed myself. I can still branch out and do these things occasionally and when I really, really want to, but I can't like spend 12 days on it and just going ham even if I really, really want to, unless somehow the energy is there and it's doing well for no discernible reason, which has happened in the past but normally doesn't last. So definitely that. I'd say just more genres in general. Looters, action games, more D&D style RPGs, CRPGs. It's like the interests are wide, but the content creation interests are narrow, if that makes sense. Howdy, Mr. Happy. No hashtag, but you said hello, so I'm going to answer this question. Hello indeed. Reflecting on Eden's Gate and Verse Savage, how would you compare the difficulty of the two when they were relevant? Was Verse a slight step up? Were they both similar to account for people who started raiding late, or something else entirely? I always have a hard time comparing raid tiers, because I like to compare them to old raid tiers, and then you start having to think about the quality of life that was available in one versus what was available in the other. All I can say is, I feel like at some points I understand some of the criticisms of Eden's Gate and Eden's Verse, but I've overall been quite pleased with the way these raid tiers have turned out. Even when there's like mechanics that aren't melee friendly, that never really bothers me. I'm more interested in seeing something that is mechanically challenging regardless of uptime gains or losses. And then I actually like seeing people try to come up with uptime strategies for specific encounters to, I guess, counteract that specific, that specific need that they're trying to take away from you. So I don't know. I've really enjoyed them. I will say that both of them had what felt like pretty steep final bosses in regards to what we're normally used to. There's a lot of safe play in them for people who are newer, and it leads to even weeks down the line tighter DPS checks than I think we normally see from our average raid tiers. You know, I look back to Alexander with Creator and how people were skipping entire phases at the end and like Tank being through mechanic fails and stuff. And then I look at Omega and how I don't know, Omega was weird. I guess the final tier of Omega wasn't really this way. Final tier of Omega felt more like our current Eden raids, but with that Stormblood design, that's not as interesting, where the fights just repeat after the first half, which I'm really glad they moved away from. That's probably my biggest thing that I'm grateful for. There's very little of the learn the first half of the fight, then just repeat it. I'd say, is there a fight that really happens? I guess the very first fight, Eden himself, Eden Prime, kind of does that, but it's really more like a learn 66% of the fight and then repeat it for the last third, as opposed to learn half of it and then repeat it in the second half. But every fight after that was like constant new things, just new things throughout the whole time. Maybe make you repeat a mechanic once towards the end, once they've now shown it to you and you've had the opportunity to learn it. But the pressure was there, and I really enjoyed that. I think they've been more easily outscaled with gear, excluding the final fight in each. I guess kind of Titan, yeah, still outscaled, but Shiva doesn't feel it whenever you do it in the party finder. Like, it still kind of feels down to the wire because people are trying really hard not to screw up. And I kind of like that. I like that there's at least some urgency for people to improve that aspect of their gameplay. Because if there isn't, then some people just aren't motivated to do it. I know I've been down that road before, where I just need to get my clear for the week and go do something else because I'm busy and I'm not really focused on improving. And these kind of took that feeling back from me. Like, now I do feel like improving or trying it on a new job or something like that. And it's been exciting. It's been a very creative and experimental time for me when it comes to raiding in particular. So step ups in my book, but I know there are people who disagree with me on that one. All right, remember that hello we were saving from a couple questions back? We have to use it here. So don't worry, somebody said hello on your behalf. But it's a very basic question that I definitely wanted to take. How do you balance top and bottom for Castrum? I ran with a random group of 22. My group was 2 healers, 3 tanks, 3 DPS, plus 2 other people from another party took top, and the other 12 took the bottom. Our top DPS was way behind and we wiped because the siege machine couldn't pull through. Thought, okay, bottom needs a few more, we're low, and then another try with 32. So it's a lot of anecdotal experiences. So the biggest thing with Castrum is everybody should just be bringing DPS stuff. Everybody should have Ether Weaver on your healers, or Ordained, or Templar, or something like that. Your DPS should be using Skirmisher, not, Plate Bearer, or something like that. Your tank should be using Martialist. And, well, yeah, you can bring some actions that maybe help with certain aspects of it, like maybe something that's a little bit better for healing, or something that's a little bit better, something that, is like Protect and Shell, or... but then you also have your Spellforge and your Bravery and any of the actions that'll boost your individual damage. Making sure people bring things like that really just makes it so you can ignore DPS discrepancies. I'd also like to add, there's a misconception going on with the top and bottom parts of Castrum, and people think you need to kill them at the same time. You don't. You have about 7.5 minutes until the enrage clicks. I will say that whoever kills it first definitely gets the Colossus if the enrage is passed. And I don't know what happens if you haven't gotten both of them past that time after about 7.5 minutes. We were top before, we killed it, we got the Colossus. But we've done testing on these things, and the Colossus does have a time window that's not relative to when the other team defeats their boss. We did a run where it was, I think it was like 24 or 25 people. Only 6 of us went up top. We were at 75% on Bryanak, and the bottom group killed it. That took about 3.5 minutes for them to kill the boss down below. they spent 4 minutes AoEing ads, almost 4.5 minutes before they were finally wiped out. So it took a really long time before that Colossus annihilated them on the bottom tier. So you don't need to hold off and kill them at about the same time. But I do have to wonder what happens if neither group kills their boss in that time. Because it's been found out that Adrammelech and Dhawan both have hard enrages. It's enough to presume that maybe after 7.5 to 8 minutes, maybe they just load up the cannons and start firing? But I don't know. There's certainly something else going on here. Additional advice, you can cast Death on the Colossus. You can have tanks with their tank invulns hold the Colossus while the other group actually kills theirs. There are ways to deal with the Colossus that buys the other group time. You can even just kite the Colossus. You can be rezzing people, as long as people are spread out and they don't cleave each other. There's plenty of ways to get through that part. And I definitely want to make sure that that's stressed. And I may even do some sort of follow-up video about the Colossus in particular. So about balancing, it's just everyone needs to be bringing DPS stuff. Then it doesn't really matter what you have. I've seen groups of 4 tanks, 2 healers, and 2 DPS do the Lion DPS check at the end with Dhawan. I've seen missplit groups manage to get through Bryanak and the boss down below. As long as the people involved are bringing DPS-related tools and not going in with 0 lost actions and 0... essences and just going in as unprepared as possible. So it's just a matter of splitting up the people as evenly as you can and everyone bringing DPS stuff. That should really be all you need. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello, Haps. How are you enjoying 5.35 and what are your thoughts on the Southern Front? So I did do a video about my first impressions and my thoughts on this, but I can give you a quick once over. I really enjoy it. It really feels like they took Eureka and took all of our feedback and filtered it in. Lost actions, infinitely better than Logos actions, available right from the get-go. Different categories, different combinations, way more fun to experiment with because you have the freedom of just get fragment, get action, go, and then just try to find all the weird combinations that felt like they were encouraging with the logo system, but not supporting all the way. The skirmishes are fun for the most part, but they are ultimately fates. There's a lot of story and lore, things progressing throughout the various zones that I feel like do work out. The critical engagements, top tier. It's hilarious to watch people live or die on those critical engagements, and the 1v1s, oof. Only thing that the problem with 1v1s has is very similar to the portal system we had in Bajra, in that it can be very frustrating when you are unable to get in because other people just take the entrance in your place. People who have no intention of really trying, people who are not prepared. And while that's frustrating, at the very least, hopefully these people can take that experience, learn from it, and eventually attempt those 1v1s later down the line. It's just frustrating when you know you can beat it, or you know you're going to get to enrage, you know you're going to get somewhere further than the person who walks in with no Logos actions, no essences, no prep, and they go lee, and then they just die in 2 seconds, you know? That's probably the most frustrating part. Would have liked to have seen maybe trade 200 clusters for a guaranteed entry into a 1v1, unless multiple people have it, in which case it'll then go to random, or they'll be the first person who uses it, or something like that. That's the one improvement I think they could make. I'm looking forward to the 24 and 48 man. That's going to be coming in 5.45. And I'm going to be looking forward to trying all sorts of crazy stuff inside of Bajra while it's here, while it's available, and before more stuff starts coming out and I get pulled away and distracted. So yeah, overall, I think that's some good coverage. All right, question right below that. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hello. First time asker, long time listener. Bajra brought to my attention an issue with the critical engagement with Parafool, the Mandragora, which is color blindness. Let me tell you, man, that one is not great for me. Since you're colorblind as well, what was your thought on the fight? A frustration. It's actually, colorblindness is actually a problem in quite a few encounters. If you watch my my duel against Sartavois, I had to turn on colorblind mode. I couldn't do it without colorblind mode. I had tried. I had died. I couldn't do it. I needed colorblind mode. Colorblind mode worked really well for me on Parafool as well, the Tritnopia option in particular. But man, they've over the years, they got really good at not doing this. And I don't know what happened, because it feels like they just forgot that they were doing that in this, and they didn't pick like vastly different colors. I don't know. It's not great. I really think that they took a step back in their accessibility, but because they have the options in the game, that's probably why they felt a little comfortable doing that. But man, people do not like on my stream when it looks like everyone just ate shrooms and I'm just seeing through purple and green from what they're telling me. So, but the Tritnopia colorblind option helps a lot with this and with the Sartavois duel, at least in my opinion. This is a short one. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I've been playing 14 since it launched on the PS3, now the PS4. finally a PC that can run the game. I was wondering if you ever encountered a fatal DirectX error. Yeah, so fatal DirectX errors, sometimes it just depends. Windows updates and it screws up. Sometimes the game updates and it screws up. More often than not, it's when I try to run two programs that try to pull from DirectX at the same time, and then that causes a clash with the DirectX and it crashes. One program that actually gives me fatal DirectX errors is my recording program, Marillus Action. I don't know why, it's just only sometimes. I guess when it's trying to like integrate itself into the window so it can record it. I guess sometimes it just gets in the way of DirectX and causes issues. All I have to do is relaunch the game and it works fine, but it's been really weird for me. So it could be the programs that you have open, even just running in the background, or it could be a problem with the install. It could be a problem with the latest update. There's so many things it could be for DirectX errors. I normally just swap back to DirectX 9, log in, log back out, swap back to DirectX 11. DirectX 9 isn't supported by Final Fantasy 14 anymore, but it still works. So sometimes doing that stops if I'm having like a string of DirectX errors. But definitely check out some of the forums. People have all sorts of solutions and things that have caused the problems, and it's good to do as much research as possible to find what might be happening to you. Another short one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? Yeah, you doing all right. What would you think if they added more features to FC, such as Glamour Items, FC mounts, kind of like, wow, that are more expensive? I'll take any gil sinks. Bro, I'm just spending my gil on the augment items in Bajja because people are getting them as drops and I'm not. So I'm like, whatever, I guess I'll just do that. And it's, you know what? That's fine. That's fine by me because I have 200 mil and I don't feel like I have much to do with it. And there are people with way more money than me who feel the same way. So I'll take anything. I don't care. Anything at all, please. All right, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Hap, hope you're doing well and that Bajja is treating you right. I know who this is, and you know how Bajja is treating me right now. This is related to a question 2 weeks ago about gear and item level. Got me thinking that while you can level all jobs on one character, gearing them decently is much harder. You think this is something that should change? For example, after you go through the weekly grind for tomes and through Savage for one job, the other jobs you decide to gear will be discounted slightly. The number of tomes books you need to buy a piece is reduced. I understand they want to keep people subbed. It can be hard to try and be flexible. But, you know, I like to try different types of jobs that you can play in endgame. And with the current system, it doesn't work. Yeah. Thanks and hope for brighter days ahead. Thank you. I would be okay with this. I think about Ultimate in particular when I think of what you're mentioning here, because when I start gearing in a raid patch, and I know Ultimate is coming in the next one, I always feel like whatever job I start getting gear for first, I'm committed now for 5 months as far as I'm concerned to that job, because I don't want to have to get 2 entire jobs geared up to BIS to do Ultimate in the case that I change. And also, I may not know which job I 100% want to change. What if I'm playing a melee and I don't have, and it's ninja, and there's 3 different gear sets? It's like, unless it's monk samurai and it's overlapping, and it's just the weapon, you run into a bit of a problem with that one. Maybe for ranged physical, you know, just needing to grab ninja gear, bit of an advantage if you really want it to be flexible like that. But having some sort of system that allows you to approach gearing after your first job a little bit easier, I'd be okay with. It's really just for Ultimate though. I don't think the casual player needs to worry about this too much, because you don't need a lot of gear to beat Savage itself. And the casual player maybe doesn't even want to gear up multiple jobs. So like the more casual the player, the more likely that they aren't hardcore gearing everything. So it becomes less of an issue, sort of, I guess is maybe the way to put it. But some people also want to collect glam, so maybe that's a whole nother thing. Maybe they want to use it as glam, but it's still so expensive, so it takes weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah. I mean, I'd be okay with this. I'm always okay with more accessibility, especially when you've already earned it and you're just earning it again for the second time. It doesn't feel like it needs to take as long, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, I'd be down. I'm rarely against things like this, unless it would drastically throw off endgame balance. And endgame balance is not balanced around having a ton of gear. So it's, yeah, I'd be okay with it. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hope you are doing well. I am, and I hope the same for you. The question is in regards to pug clear groups and integrating Stone Sky Sea. We've had this discussion before. Not you and I, but like on the channel, we've had this one. I've been helping my FC get their first EXN Savage clears through the Party Finder. I've seen both them and some randoms come up short in terms of the DPS department, even when they make no mechanical mistakes. Up until a player tries to do harder content, there's really nothing mandatory in game that forces a player to try and learn an optimal rotation until they fall short at ad phases and enrages in the harder content. I was thinking that Stone Sky Sea completion can make us could be made as a Party Finder requirement. You are far from the first person to suggest this. This does get a little bit dicey during certain times because some jobs have very, very mismatched Stone Sky Sea requirements versus other jobs. Some DPS jobs have just such a massive requirement, and some jobs with their RNG can be very frustrating at the lower item levels in order to properly hit them. I know when I was doing Dancer, when you don't have a dance partner, you know, 5% of your DPS isn't being accounted for. 5% of your contribution isn't being counted for. You can't use a Chocobo because the Chocobo is going to cheat on the thing. Like, you can't, your Chocobo is going to DPS the Stone Sky Sea dummy, which, by the way, works, which would be a way to cheat around the system. They'd have to make sure they remove that, which hurts some jobs in terms of their testing capabilities, or at least they used to before like Dragoon Eye and stuff was a thing. So, yeah, like, it's one of those ideas that on paper makes perfect sense. But the way it's built now doesn't make it a great determining factor. It's a good enough determining factor, I think, but it has some loopholes. So if they were to fix it and redesign it in such a sense that it is a more accurate representation of your ability to go into a fight, perform the encounter, and provide the DPS, that I think would be better. They don't have to go crazy with mechanics. They just have to make sure that you understand that you need to move during the fight, and maybe occasionally just aim an AoE at you and see how you respond to it. Maybe aim a few AoEs at you, see how you respond to it, and how it affects your DPS. Doesn't have to be the fight mechanics or anything like that. Just has to push you to that little level to make sure that you understand how to do mechanics and hit the boss at the same time. If they rework it like that, I will agree to this. As it is right now, though, yeah, they could do it, but I feel like it just wouldn't be where it needs to be. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hope you are doing well. Hope the same for you, and thank you for saying hello. I don't have intention to do Bajra or Relic, as there are other games I'm waiting for, and I finished E8 Savage months ago. One of these games that caught my eye is Genshin Impact. I noticed in one of your videos you're saying you're playing. Yeah. Is this game worth playing if I spend zero money on it? Will it be bottlenecked very often if I don't play? If I am just hoping to play something fun and casual before Cyberpunk. So fun and casual might be the best way to approach it, but it depends on how much you want to play it. Genshin Impact starts off by really making you feel like you've got the world ahead of you, and you quite literally do. You have 2 giant zones to explore, find all the treasure chests, complete all the quests. The story starts off really strong. The voice acting is actually pretty solid, even in English, as I don't play games in Japanese because I don't speak Japanese, so it's just not appealing to me. So you'll be fine until you start trying to be hardcore. Around AR 27 is when it really starts to kick in. There's a resource called Resin, which if you played any sort of mobile game is basically a stamina system. Now you don't need it for very many things, but if you want to claim rewards on certain objectives, you do need to use it. And it recharges very slowly, 1 every 8 minutes, which has been a very, very common complaint. And we're kind of hoping it's addressed via feedback or a post or something in the next month or so. That, if you do not throw the gems that you collect at that, or you do not throw, you know, I don't know, like your fragile resins at it, that starts to not feel great. So that's where you may feel bottlenecked, is when you start getting towards AR 27, 28. At that point, I'd recommend putting the game down, maybe when you hit AR 29 and finish the main scenario that is available at the time, and then come back to it later when it's updated, maybe in like December, because you can beat everything free to play. There are people out there with free to play guides. There are people out there who are doing exactly what you're expressing, but that doesn't mean it can't be frustrating, because you will feel bottlenecked at some point if you're not willing to throw some of your resources at being able to obtain more rewards. I would wait to see if they rework Resin. I would maybe hop in, see if you at least enjoy the core concept of the game before its gacha-based aspects and its Resin, and then keep up with it and maybe filter something else in, because I don't think it'll buy you all the time you need until Cyberpunk and Demon's Souls, unless you're willing to go absolutely ham on it, or you actually only have a few hours a day to play, in which case it'll last you a really long time. So that's my honest opinion on it, but I am playing it, and like I said, I am pulling for Klee later this week, so wish me luck. All right, hashtag Mrhappy Monday. Oh boy, this is a long one. Hey there, hi, ho, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I have 3 questions. Obviously, you don't have a ton of time. Just take whichever you feel like. I got time. The last few Mondays with Mr. Happy haven't been too long. By the time you get to this question, it will have been almost a week since Bajra came out. Seems agreed on that Bajra somewhat replaced Deep Dungeon. Yes. Having spent some time in Bajra, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the difference between the two for leveling purposes, specifically which you prefer. I prefer, so when you go into Palace of the Dead to level, it really doesn't feel great. I hate leveling with Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High. I despise it. Because the only thing I find fun in Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High is the higher floors, whether it be a solo attempt or with some friends, and those floors that you're just mowing through. I'd rather be doing dungeons and like desynthing gear, or just anything that's better than Palace of the Dead Heaven on High. With this, they've essentially taken what is a familiar leveling method and just applied some systems on top of it. Skirmishes and critical engagements are for all intents and purposes fates. Some of them are worth more, some of them are worth less. But the good news is you can level and be working on a relic at the same time, be working on multiple relics at the same time. You could be earning lockboxes to get mounts or materia that you can then use for your job that you just leveled at up to level 80. You're also going to get a ton of indigo stars. Trust me, you'll get a ton of indigo stars. You could be working towards I-495 pieces once you start going into the castrum itself. The fact that there are so many things you can get done on the way from 71 to 80, while also being able to play your job at level 80 the whole time so you can get used to the button placements and experiment a little bit with that, I just feel is so much more valuable than the way Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High, where you don't really ever get to feel like you really even approach learning anything about your job, and you have all the skills, but you just mow through the rooms and the bosses or whatever, whereas some of the critical engagements will actually put your skills to the test. Not a whole lot of skills, it's not like the savage level shit, but at the very least you can get a more accurate representation of where your job will stand when dodging certain mechanics, or in larger encounters, or when dealing with knockbacks, and it's a little more involved, and I think it's superior to Deep Dungeons for leveling on that virtue alone, before we even take into account the actual speed, in which case it's really quick. So the EXP rewards are also quite fantastic. Second question, what do you think of the fact that memory drops are 100% for Heavensward Fates? Really love Bajra, it's a ton of fun, but it really took the wind out of my sails for content when I get the items so much more consistently from Fates. This is what I'm talking about. When you're in Bajra, you're getting more than one thing done. You could be leveling and working on relics at the same time, but specifically leveling 71 to 80. Heavensward Fates, yeah, I guess if you want to level 51 to 60, hey, you've got yourself a follow-up. You've got yourself something that you can work on simultaneously, and you've made it worth your time even more. But you also know that you'll be done in 60 Fates, no matter what. So that's up to you, whether or not those things. But again, all the other objectives and things you could be working on in Bajra, that's the main reason why the drop rates are so different. I finished almost 4 relics now in Bajra in this week. I didn't touch a Heavensward Fate. I never had to even think about getting these items for the relic, because I'm not in there for the relic. I'm in there for the 1v1s. I'm in there for the EXP. I'm in there for the lockboxes, to get a mount from this, to get my clusters, to get a mount for that, to get my gear from Bajra, to get the augmented stuff from Bajra, to get the minions from Bajra, to get the housing material. I'm picking up all these things instead of just doing Heavensward Fate 60 times and then 6 dungeons. Which, if all you want is the relic, great. We now have a filter with which people who want only the relics can earn only the relics. They can focus on it, they can get it done in a reasonable amount of time, and get it for multiple jobs. For people who are interested in Bajra specifically, they can earn their relics while actually going through the zone and finishing up all the objectives that are in there. So I have no problem with this. I thought it was weird they did Heavensward Fates and not Shadowbringers Fates, but it must be because they want to populate Heavensward, because it's part of the free trial now. So they're like, oh yeah, we'll throw people in Heavensward, because that way the people who are doing the free trial will see all these people running around and doing content, which is very in line with what they've done with the relics in the past, but it's weird to see them hop back to expansions just for that reason, you know? Third question, I'm usually not a lore buff, and I don't think I missed this. Why are the alternate relic objectives all based on... Oh, I just answered that. There you go. It's just so they could populate the old zones, since the free trial and the starter edition now include Heavensward. That's all. I don't think it's for any other reason. Here's a quick one. Hashtag I feel like this person came to my stream and asked me the same question. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Happy, have you played or are interested in playing Hades? Hades is a fantastic game. I played it in early access, and I knew that game was destined for greatness, because it's between the art style, the music, the characters, the actual gameplay, whether you're doing a speedrun or a casual, that game is fantastic. Top tier. And I would highly recommend it to anyone who's a big fan of roguelites, because it's just really good. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's just really good. I probably won't be playing it like for content anytime soon, but I highly encourage other people to play it because it is fantastic. And it actually looks like this is the last question. There's some other comments about stuff from last week. So, yeah, let's take a look. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hi, how's it going? Hey, thank you for saying hello. We only had to use the one hello that I was gifted at the beginning. that worked out pretty well this week. Why on earth is sprint not permanent in cities? The basic movement speed and long cooldown on sprint makes my skin crawl. Couldn't think of a reason they might want to keep people this slow in big cities, especially during story quests and similar. Yeah, I always go on like Dancer or a ranged physical and pop Peloton just to go faster all the time. I have nothing against sprint being permanent in cities in particular. It's a slippery slope because then people go like, well, if it's going to be permanent there, it should just be permanent out of combat everywhere. And I guarantee you, I just said that and someone's like, he's right. And then that's a slippery slope to why is it only 10 seconds in combat? Or I think it's largely for immersion's sake. I feel like the idea of a sprint is not I run fast forever. A sprint is I run fast for a short period of time and then I catch my breath. So if they changed it between like to call it run faster because there's walk, run, sprint, just call it the walk, run faster, then maybe they would change it. At this point, it doesn't really bother me that much, but I do think that there is some reason, it's reasonable enough to see why they may go this route. So, yeah, I wouldn't be against this in all honesty. And I don't see a great reason other than immersion's sake to not have it that way. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really need to get anywhere faster. The Ethernet itself is enough to get me places after an initial visit, more than enough, but I can't argue against it. I've got nothing to argue against it. So sure, why not? And with that, that's going to be the last question we answer for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Let me just make sure real quick. Yeah, most of them are just comments like the positional discussion we had last week. I'd rather buy from your affiliate link. So we've got a few just general comments from last week. Some spoilers for Ishgard regarding after you've actually completed this last round that's happening right now because Tonberry already finished it. Of course they did. And I don't think there's anything else here. I think I've gotten all the other questions. There's some more advice for the person who asked about suppression last week, if they're still looking for encouraging words for that. Other than that, I think we're good. So thanks everyone for watching this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Ask your questions in the comment section of the video below for next week's Q&A. On that note, I've got a sandwich here that's got my name on it, so I'm going to eat that. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.